Hello YouTube, this is Asmodeus, bringing to you today the GWPanther. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I could be wrong. And according to one of my friends that speaks German, the name translates into Thundercar, which, given the fact that this is artillery, would be very accurate. Funny old thing, artillery. It is probably the single most hated class of vehicle available in the world of tanks. The reason for that is artillery gets to sit back, has a bird's eye view of things, and doesn't really have to put their lives at stake, per se, as much as any other tier of tank. And I tell you, people absolutely hate getting blasted by artillery. And as many people know, there's been tons of nerfs and stuff revolving around artillery. And most of those people, I'd have to say, are the donks that will sit where artillery can shoot them. And they will sit there, whine, complain, cry, pitch fits, even rage when artillery even hits them, or worse still, commits the cardinal sin of killing their beloved tank. Simple cure for this. Well, I guess I can't say exactly simple, but simple in theory is to find a place where you can do good for your team and try and stay out of where artillery can hit you. On some maps, yeah, it can kind of be very difficult to do, most notably on the more open maps like Proporovka, Malinovka, and other wide open maps where there isn't a lot of artillery cover. Much easier to do on city maps like White Park, Ensk, Himmelsdorf, Ruhenberg, or even Siegfried Line, where artillery has to work harder to get firing angles on enemy tanks. So it's a bit of a mixed bag there. Though, completely lost my train of thought. Once again, embarrassing myself for YouTube. But people don't watch these types of games to be entertained with artillery. Oh yeah, that's where I was going to go. Anywho, damn it, lost it again. No, yes, no. Damn it. I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Oh, this is embarrassing beyond belief. Oh yes, now I completely remember where I was going. People will often complain that artillery is a no-skill class to play. And in a way, they are and are not correct. Anybody can pick up artillery and have reasonable success in shooting tanks. It's pretty easy to come to grips with artillery, and anybody can do good in artillery. But for the people that take the time to fully master the aspects of playing arty, they transcend from good to great. And how they do that is they memorize maps, tank specifications, and their shell flight time, as well as how to lead targets and all kinds of other stuff that goes into it. Lead time is a huge mark for a good to great artillery player. And how I mean by that, say if you're playing artillery and you got somebody moving from point A to point B, and there's an open spot in between them, and somebody spots tank moving from point A to point B, and Artie's paying attention and can get an angle on the guy, while they're waiting for their aiming reticle to shrink on him if they got enough gun traverse, they can track him while bearing in mind their flight time on specific maps, and to a reasonable degree expect to hit their target on the move. And people will rage beyond belief at the artillery players that can do that. This particular artillery has a very, very large gun traverse angle. It is about like so in either direction. It has a very, very wide firing gun traverse angles. It also has pretty good elevation angle. And what that translates into is this particular artillery piece can fire across basically any map, save for maybe some of the longest point-to-point areas, like I forget the name of the map, but basically high tier 6 through 8 artillery can effectively fire across any map on the game, and that is one thing people hate about it. Of course, it's not so for the low tier artillery, who have a much, much shorter range, but that's to be expected. Anywho, onto the stats of the tank. Let me find it down here. Vehicle details. It has 350 hit points, so it can be one-shotted fairly easily. Weighs up to 51 tons, which is absolutely ludicrous weight, considering even if fully decked, the most this thing's ever going to weigh is maybe up to 35 tons, which is relatively light, I guess you could say. That's medium tank standards, which is to be expected considering this particular artillery piece, as its name implies, is based off of a medium tank, most specifically the Panther, which is the German Tier 7 medium tank. Anywho, it has a 460 horsepower engine and can go up to 48 kilometers per hour. That 460 horsepower engine, combined with that very, very low weight, gives this artillery piece a very high power to weight ratio. Unfortunately, I can't bring that up, and I have no idea how to figure the math, and I'm not going to bother with it anyways. Armor, artillery, practically useless, but it has 50 millimeters at the front, which will stop most low-tier scout tanks' guns, and they can bounce quite effectively off of that front plate. And just to add insult to injury to the low-tier scouts, it's angled. Turret armor, useless. For the whole 50-30-20 turret, 30-16-16. But that turret frontally is quite well angled and rounded. And anything can go through it, but low tier tanks, which will probably never see this thing in a battle, and if they do will probably crap their pants, would bounce off of that, and have a hard time getting through the side of that. Maybe. It's pretty flat. It's got big tracks, even if there is a pretty good sized gap right there. Rear armor, quite angled, actually. I want to say that's probably somewhere around the neighborhood of a 30 to 35 degree angle. And I don't know if this is still true or not, but the 50 centimeter guns that the low tier Germans get, and probably some of the lower tier 37 millimeter guns, have actually failed to penetrate this back plate over here. I don't know if that's still the case or not. Haven't really been able to tell. No idea why that's even there or what it's used for. Probably some sort of walking platform, I would assume, if this tank was ever truly developed. You know, give the crew something to stand on and fire the gun, walk around, clean it, all that fun stuff. No idea. That's just useless speculation. Turret traverse, slow, but when you're in artillery mode, you really don't notice it that much. View range on its own, 350 meters. That's actually pretty good. Actually, that's phenomenal for artillery. If it has to spot for itself, which any good artillery should never have to do, and hopefully you got a good enough team to keep scouts from coming up and getting you. Not like that ever happens, because every team always leaves artillery out to dry. Signal range, 710 meters, will cover most of the map, so anything that gets spotted within that range is available for you to see. And that 710 meter actually covers a pretty vast swath of the maps, considering there are only 1 kilometer on an XY axis, which is north to south, east to west. That being the X and that being the Y. Let's see. Now we move to the gun. Artillery gets very, very powerful cannons. I differentiate between cannons and howitzers. Howitzers are typically short-range weaponry, though I guess you could call it a howitzer. Anyways, it gets a 15 centimeter SFH 36 L30 Alps 1943. I remember right, the Alps, it refers to the model of it. I could be mistaken. My historical designation for German wording is quite off. Anywho, fires just under, just a little over 2.5 rounds a minute. Keep in mind that is for 100% crews. Mine obviously isn't, so it's a little bit longer than that. With a gun rammer and 100% crew, you're looking at a shot roughly every 12 to 13 seconds, I want to say, but that's not correct. It's probably somewhere more towards the neighborhood of 15 seconds a round. 88 millimeters of penetration, which is utter garbage, but keeping in mind where artillery shoots is typically on top of tanks, where the armor is actually quite thin. The roof plates on, say, like a Tiger or something are typically very, very thinly armored, and so that 88 millimeters of penetration should have no problems going through the tops of vehicles, providing that's where you hit them. German artillery, most notably with the Hummel, or basically everything from the Vespa up to this at the least, has a fairly flat trajectory, which means the shell doesn't arc as heavily as like you get with tanks from America on their higher tier artillery, which is once again 6 through 8. Most notably on the tier 3 Russian artillery, where they have very, very steep gun arcs, where it, say artillery is right here, they fire, it goes up and comes down at a pretty steep arc. Whereas with the German artillery, it's more like so. I'm not sure how well that representation is going to work. Anywho, 0.43 accuracy at 100 meters. Accuracy on artillery is a total crap shot. The shells tend to go fairly wild, even if you have your aim reticle completely zeroed in. There's it's still a pretty significant chance that the shell will completely undershoot or overshoot the target. Aiming time 6.3 seconds, which is painfully slow, especially when you're used to other tanks where your average aim time is anywhere from, let's say 2.5 seconds to 3.25 of a second. Artillery takes a noticeably long time to aim in, and the aiming circle will move and expand a lot as you adjust your gun angle on a target. Even if it's just tracking a target, it'll still expand. Not as heavily as if you have to turn your entire hull, but it's still there, and more significantly so than with turreted tanks. Crew skills on artillery are pretty much a crap shot, really. But for artillery, 6th sense on your commander, very, very vital. Situational awareness on this particular setup, with the commander is also the radio operator. Not entirely sure how useful that is. It might come in handy, though. I'd have to say 6th sense, absolutely vital. Recon, not so much. Camouflage, lots and lots of camouflage. Typically, if you get spotted in artillery, you're dead. For the gunner, camouflage or snapshot, not such a bad idea, because you are moving your gun around a lot. So that, I believe, would be fairly useful. But definitely camouflage. Drivers get some interesting skills, though on artillery they're kind of useless. The only thing I can see that would be vaguely useful is clutch braking. But yeah, 28 degrees per second is pretty slow, and the faster you can turn that around, the better. But once again, camouflage. And this gets 2 loaders, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it does. Loader skills, pretty much useless. And if you're getting shot in artillery, you're screwed. Camouflage on both loaders. So basically, 6th sense, snapshot, clutch braking, camouflage, or just go pure camouflage for your first set of skills, then swap them out for the other 2, or the other skills on those 3 people. But definitely camo, and more camo. If you can afford it, get the paint on the tank. That gives you a plus 5% bonus on your camo rating, a camo net. Just make these things as stealthy as possible. And speaking of equipment fit, camouflage net, absolutely necessary. Medium caliber artillery shell rammer, always a great idea because artillery fires very slowly once you start getting up into the tiers. I'd also suggest a gunline drive to help hammer down your reload time, since you can't put vents on this. So that big deal. I'm a bit tight on credits at the moment, so I can't afford to slap that on there, but basically everything else is completely useless on artillery. It doesn't need it, no purpose on there. Gunline drive, rammer, net. Simple as that. Let's see. That should about cover that. This thing never existed off of blueprints and is only physically modeled here in the game. So, yeah, nothing really to talk about there. Let's see. For my shell loadout, though, I went 20 standard ammos and 5 of each of the additional premium ammunition, which on artillery is extremely expensive, 5,200 credits a pop. So if you're plugging those away, you're losing money very quickly. Artillery very rarely will make money, and that's just because of the way it works. Standard ammo, really the way to go, and it's a lot cheaper. And if you're used to playing high tier tanks or even the Soviet tanks with the 122mm guns, you're quite used to this high ammo cost and have come up with ways of doing it. I do have a med kit, repair kit, and fire extinguisher on here. That's mostly a force of habit, though there are occasions where I get lucky and survive being hit, but I might need to repair like my gun, or I got a dead crew member. Can't say I ever really have much of a problem with fires on this thing, but still, nice to have when you need it. Better to have one ready and not need it than to need it and not have it, I guess is the way that saying goes. So, with that, let's hop into a game. Notably though, Matchmaker typically has a hard time placing artillery. And on tier 6 artillery, tier 7 is about the lowest you're ever going to see. My typical is tiers 8 through 10, with me being the only actual tier 6 on the team. And this is Fisherman's Bay, and as you can see on the right hand side of my screen, I've got a few little things that pop up. That is because of the XVM mod that I use. I do not use the one that will show me efficiency rating and stuff of that of my teams. They'll just give me average chance or percentage based chance of victory. I just ignore that completely. To me, that's just completely useless, and I don't care to know how good somebody is in a tank, because it doesn't matter if you're the best player in the world. You get stuck on a crap team, you're not going to do so well most of the time. Every now and again there are people that can pull miracles from seemingly out of nowhere, or for those of you with cruder minds, out of their ass. That's beside the point. The point being is, you're really only as good as your team, and a lot of people seem to forget that. Now, this is the reason why people think Artie is hack, overpowered, crap like that. It's because I have this nice, lovely bird's eye view, and I do not have to expose my tank to get this view. If you can look at the minimap, I'm quite safe where I'm at. Or at least I am, until somebody up on the E line gets a spot on me, a scout comes rolling through, whatever, or if their artillery is good, they counter batter me. Typically I fire a couple shots from one spot and then I'll move. Or if I catch that they're trying to counter battery, I'll move after every shot, which is typically a smart idea for artillery players to do. Dead Artie is useless to your team. Well, a dead tank is useless to any team. But artillery does have the power to heavily influence games, and I believe that's one reason why people don't like it that much. Except for the Artie noobs that play artillery, myself included. But there for a while, probably about a good 5,000 or so matches, I didn't even play artillery. And that was back when 7.1 came out, when they reintroduced the artillery tracers. And I swear, as soon as I got into position, without firing a single shot, I'd been counter batteried. And that was within the first 30 to 40 seconds of a game. And oddly enough, it was shortly after I had first gotten this tank. The same very tank I stopped playing artillery in. For almost a full year, actually. And just for some oddball reason, I decided to get back into it. So yeah, alright, I'll try playing artillery again. And from then on, I've pretty much rediscovered my love for playing artillery. Most people will jump into a lower tier tank to unwind, get away from the typical idiocy that happens in high tier games. And I am totally screwed at the moment. Not like my team's gonna give a rat's, but I'm gonna make my stand and hopefully, keyword hopefully, hit that M103. Big old hit, but I'm toast. And that's what happens. People will typically leave artillery out to dry. It didn't help that most of our team decided to go town, leaving very, very few tanks to hold that avenue, when clearly that's where they were making their push. But I guess people don't watch the mini-map or something. I guess that they just don't have very good situational awareness, or they're too caught up in the moment, which I believe would be a more likely thing. It's just they get so caught up with what they're doing, they don't look at the map, and then they'll whine and cry that they lost the match, or whatever side has failed, or whatever. I honestly don't know what goes through people's heads. I'm not psychic, don't claim to be. I just play the game. I guess we can stick around and see how this one pans out. I don't expect them to win. Not with what they're throwing at it. Then again, got T-32 poking away at them. Lorraine's coming back. Lorraine's actually a pretty good tank. Super Pershing just signed his death warrant. And beautiful shot by the Lorraine. And I'm surprised nobody's capping. But then again, I guess since they're both there and they're fairly tough tanks, that they might not want to risk it. And as you can see there, the Super Pershing is cussing up a storm because the Lorraine shot him. And it was probably because he opened his mouth. Oh. Anyways, that was a very close win. Technically, they should have had that one. But thanks to a few smart people realizing what was going on, we were able to live. It's average. That's an average artillery game. I'm not going to open up my clan chats. Now, people might be wondering why there's multiple clan chats. To alleviate that, we have 4 clans. For the, well, our particular group has 4 separate clans. We have the Fur HQ, which is Furry Headquarters, which I am a part of, Red Paw Print. We have the FURD, which is the Furry Recon Division. First, I don't remember exactly what they stand for. And then we have the Fur E, which is our new main Clan Wars group. So, if you see us in battle, feel free to give us a shout out. Please don't be a total jerk about it. We get enough crap. We're just nice, laid back people for the most part. And like you, we're just trying to play the game and have fun. I mean, after all, it's a video game, and we're not physically hurting anybody. Virtually, yeah. But hey, it's a game. Completely lost where I was going. You know what? Let's go for another match. See if we can do a little bit better before I have to cut this one. This is more normal for me. Sitting in queue, waiting to get into a match. And once you know it, Tier 9 battle on Ensk. Already, I'm not getting a very warm, fuzzy feeling. They have quite a few slow tanks, though I am worried about that WZ-120. And well, pretty much all their Chinese tanks and that T-20 have got me a bit worried. They're fast, they got decent view ranges. I'm most worried about the WZ-120 and the T-34-2, because both of them pack a pretty nasty punch. Now, some artillery players will go to the 1-2 column there on the K sector. I don't like going there. I could never really seem to get any sort of firing angles while over there. Granted, I'm more protected from scout rushes and stuff over there than I am out here. But it's just a matter of preference. Now, as you can see, I've got some wonky gun stuff going on, and I want to try and hit that lion. And ooh, lit him on fire. Beautiful shot. Now, is he going to cook to death? Nope. Fire extinguisher. I hear that he's got good firefighting. Now, I've seen that their E75 is over there, so if he pokes out around, I'll be keeping an eye on him. But this is what I'm talking about. People sitting where artillery can hit them. Granted, that shot fell short, but now he knows I have a view on him. What's he do? Stays out in the open. Maybe he doesn't realize how clear of an angle I have on him. I'm not entirely sure. Looks like our Pershing and IS-8 are going to go mop up that WZ and T-34-2. And I don't feel like they need my help. But I will be keeping an eye on the situation over there. Another thing I did kind of fail to mention is artillery absolutely needs to have good map awareness. Because if you're not paying attention to your map, you're never going to find where those targets are. You can sit there and stare at one spot the entire match and never see anything. Take a pot shot at that the Super Pershing with no luck. I see something developing over here, and now it has me worried. Our IS-8 has died, actually, and those two Chinese tanks are now left unchecked. No idea where that shot went. So now I'm going to go into what is referred to as TD mode and hope to catch him like this. Call for help. Okay, there's the T-34-2. And that was the WZ. He'd seen me somewhere. Must have caught my turret moving or something. Never seen him. Yeah. So it's entirely possible that he has camo on his tanks. And this is one thing that's very common. People will complain that the artillery did not help them. And I'm not lying when I say it, almost 7-second aim time makes it very hard to help quickly. But I was paying attention to my map, but oh well, no big deal. And this is what happens with a crap team when playing artillery. As soon as this loads up, I'll be able to show you. This is the other end of average for artillery. As much as I hate to end a video on a sour note, this has been Asmodeus, and I will see you next time.